Joining us right now, as he does every Friday, is the voice of the Phillies. You heard him right there in that call back in 2009, Scott Franzke. Scott! How you doing?
Boys, how we doing?
We're pretty good, man. We're excited about some playoff baseball.
Yeah, why not? Let's do it.
Scott, this is, it's special every time this year, but do you get extra butterflies when October rolls around? Like that, when you crack the mic tomorrow night, does it feel different? Or have you been in so many of these that it's playoffs?
No, it'll feel different. I hope I never take for granted what it means to be here and to be in those moments and to have those games to call. I hope I never take that for granted because it's something different. It's, when I got here, 07 to 11, 5 of my first 6 years we were in the postseason and had a lot of meaningful games, had a lot of big moments, and I knew then that there was nothing more fun than doing playoff baseball. To be able to call that. So, yeah, I hope I never lose that.
You know, Scott, when we talk about this team, we know it's different. But me and Joe, we're trying to put our finger on the pulse of this. You're closer to it than we are. What do you see that's the biggest difference with this team this year as opposed to any other season they were in this position?
Well, I think certainly it's different from last year. I think the way they played in September has guys feeling differently, has their confidence level is different. It's different for everybody, each player individually, but you take somebody like Alec Boehm who went into the postseason last year and wasn't swinging the bat very well and ended up not in the lineup, was out of the lineup for those games in New York, and he's a different player right now. He's riding high, he's got high level of confidence, he's swinging the bat well. So I do think that there's a lot of those type individual players that probably feel a lot better about themselves than where they did at this time last year. So yeah, I think the attitude is good. I think the overall confidence level is pretty good.
I think the resiliency too of this group, it's been there all year. I mean, for a team that won as many games they did, Scott, they had some down moments. I mean, they got swept multiple times, right out of New York twice, out of Pittsburgh, and I came on here the next day. I was like, "This is rock bottom. We're screwed." And look at them now. But every time they had one of those, they bounced back in a big way. And even you could throw the Zach Wheeler injury in, which was enormous in so many ways. But they seemed to, every time there was a moment where you question, is this going to teeter the wrong way, they got right back up. And that gives me confidence because last year against the Mets, I feel like they didn't do that, right? They went down, lost Game 3, and then Game 4 game was on the ropes, and it just went the wrong way. I feel like they have a resiliency to them that maybe hasn't been there maybe since 22.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I mean, part of what helped them bounce back so often was having such a great starting rotation. And that meant that losing streaks were short. There are always going to be losing streaks, but you hope that your starting pitcher will keep them to a minimum. And for the Phillies this year, for sure, they had such a good starting rotation that those losing streaks never became, 4, 5, 6 game skids. They would kind of cap it at, 2, 3, 4 maybe, and then bounce back.
All right, Scott, let's talk about the matchup that starts tomorrow night because it is not your typical first-round series. It's not a typical division series. For my money, it's the two best teams in baseball. I think the winner of this is very likely to win the World Series if they get through the series. You just saw this team a few weeks ago when the Phillies were out in L.A. How great are the Dodgers? Are they very good? Are they great? Like when you watch them, and I know it was only 3 games, but just when you saw them a few weeks ago, how good is this team coming in here to face us?
This is the best team they will play. I don't know how many more teams they're going to play, but this is the best one they're going to play. And that doesn't mean they're going to go all the way, even if they win this series. But I do think they're as deep and as talented, and they're playing well right now. They probably feel really good about the way they played in that series against Cincinnati. They're not without flaws. Every team has flaws, but this is a really, really good baseball team the Phillies are going to have to try to beat.
There's no question. They come in here as defending World Series champions with Ohtani on the mound. Let's talk about Game 1 tomorrow night. Christopher Sanchez, he answered the bell. I remember when we talked to you, and we were down in spring training for a few days, and everyone we talked to said, this is real. Like, the Christopher Sanchez breakout season is coming. And I always think, Scott, in sports, when people say that, it never tends to live up quite to the hype. He did. I mean, he was exactly what people said he would be. He's going to finish probably top 2 in the Cy Young behind Skeens. But tomorrow night and this series, this is a different kind of animal now. Like, he's the number one. And if you think about this series, potentially 45 innings, he could take down 14. I mean, he could be almost a third of the innings the Phillies throw could be Sanchez in his 2 starts. You think he's ready for this moment?
I do. I think he's very much ready for it. I think the fact that, it's 6 weeks now they've been without Zach Wheeler. It's 6 weeks that he's had to wrap his head around that notion that he's going to be the Game 1 starter. I think everybody saw that coming. As long as they didn't need to use him on a, final day clinch kind of thing, he was going to be the Game 1 starter. And he hasn't backtracked at all. I think he'll be good. I think he'll be ready for it. I think he is everything you want to see in an ace. He's got 3 pitches. They're all quality pitches. He commands all of them very, very well. He's got one of them that's just a devastating pitch in his changeup. And, and I like the fact that he's left-handed to go up against the guys like Ohtani and Freeman. Yeah, I think he'll be ready for it. I hope he gets enough. Zach Wheeler last year came out of the gates firing and 7 scoreless innings, and they're up 1-0, but 1 wasn't enough. And there will be times when that starter leaves the game. There's no question. I think they will ride their starters as much as they can, and I think the Dodgers are going to do the same thing. So it could come down. The idea is if you're Philly or you're LA, I think the idea is you're going to try to stay in the fight, stay in the game, keep it close, even if your starter isn't pitch perfect, so you have a chance against the other squad's bullpen.
Speaking of when you said being pitch perfect, there's been a lot of conversation about Aaron Nola and the fact that he might potentially start one of these games in this series. How are you feeling about that? I know his ERA wasn't what you wanted it to be this year, and it hasn't been indicative of who he's been in the past. But how do you feel about that if he gets potentially a start in this series?
Well, again, I don't know what they're going to do. I know that's kicked around, the idea of him starting, and maybe he's got a short leash, and you have one of the other guys there to piggyback with him, for instance. But again, Aaron Nola's got a pedigree. He's got some track record. He's had some really good games. He's had some that aren't as good in the postseason. And I know it would be if they do start him, it's going to be a huge topic of conversation.
Oh, yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Oh, yeah. And however it works, it's going to be a huge topic of conversation for a long time, I think.
Yeah, it's the other day when and Topper's going to speak at 1:15 today, so we'll see what he says or if he says anything. But when he was on the morning show on WIP the other day, he kind of alluded to it might be. And if they do that, I'm wondering, does that mean whoever is his piggyback could pitch tomorrow out of the bullpen? Like, I'm wondering because you only need 3 starters in this series, right? With the days off. You don't need a 4th starter. So if they use Aaron Nola, that other starter, which I guess could be Ranger Suarez, if they're penciling Luzardo in, he could be used in a different way. Because Game 3 isn't until Wednesday night, right? You have the day off tomorrow, day off Sunday, and then day off Tuesday for the travel day. Do you think they could do that? Like, if they pencil Nola in as the starter for Game 3, potentially Ranger out of the bullpen tomorrow?
Potentially. I think, the way I understand it, Jesus went to him at one point and said, look, if I'm not starting till Game 3, I'm happy to come out of the bullpen. He's done it before. And I think the thing you get with Jesus is you get a left-hander who is dominant against lefties. Yeah. Ranger is more an even split kind of guy. But I do think Luzardo gives you the option of, let's say you start Nola in Game 2. Let's say you go that route. And your plan is to have Luzardo piggyback with him. Dodgers load up on left-handed bats in their starting lineup. And maybe Nola goes one time through the order. Maybe he goes a time and a half. Maybe he gets into the 4th or 5th, and then you flip the script and you go to Luzardo. And if you did that, if he pitched on Monday, he could still come back and potentially be available, certainly for Game 5, to close it out back here on the following Saturday. So there's a lot of things that they're kicking around. I do think that if you start Nola, it will be a situation where he's watched really closely. And if there's any signs, of the stuff not being there or the command not being there, then I think you would end up with a quick hook.
Scott Franzke with us here. It is our Red October Rally at Stateside Live. Come on by. Lot S is where you can park and walk over. It's an exciting day here through 6 p.m. today, afternoon show after us. John Middleton's going to be live at 3 o'clock today, so come on by as we get ready for tomorrow, which should be an awesome atmosphere at Citizens Bank Park. All right, Scott, let's talk about Bryce Harper. You've called the moments. There's been a lot of them. He has been one of the great October performers ever, certainly of this generation. I don't think he had a great year. I thought it was good. And by his standards, not great, because his standards are so high. He's a future Hall of Famer. What do you expect? Because I think he's going to have a big October. I always think he's going to have a big October, especially, 22, his first October here. He went into that postseason not hitting well. All right, he didn't hit well in September. He had a lot of injuries that year, and then it was like a switch flipped, right? That home run he hit off of Michaelis in St. Louis. Your expectation for Bryce this October?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable expectation to think that he can have a big October. I think whether it's Trey or Kyle or Bryce, I think you're talking about players that can get so hot that they carry a team through a series, through a week, through a couple of weeks, whatever the case might be. Is it a must? That somebody needs to step up. Right. Somebody's going to have to swing the bat. Somebody's going to have to come through in big moments, 2 outs, runners in scoring position, that kind of thing, come up with big base hits. And I think, he's as good a candidate as anybody given the track record to be that guy. And I'm with you. I mean, his year, and he would probably tell you the same. He wanted probably more out of his year. From an offensive standpoint and personal numbers, but he understands the long game. He understands what's ahead of him, and a little bit like the way Mookie Betts. I don't know how about that Dodgers series you watched, but Betts had a really bad year, but he finished strong and he had a huge first round, and that's all any player can do. What has happened has already happened. And they can't dwell on that. And as an athlete, they've only got their next at bat and their next chance in the field, and what's still to come, the next game on the schedule. So you can put all of you start over. You're 0-0, and you can pen the narrative however you'd like based on what happens over the next few weeks.
Speaking of Betts, Ohtani, a couple nights ago, when
I see what you did there.
Yeah,
when Betts got a big hit, he talked after the game about he wouldn't be surprised if teams pitched around Shohei. He wouldn't pitch to Shohei. How do you think the Phillies are going to approach that? Because typically when there's a player as good as Shohei Ohtani, you try not to pitch to him in a big moment. They have Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman behind him. It's as dangerous as it is, Scott. I couldn't just put free base runners on for that Dodgers lineup.
That don't seem smart.
I don't think they are. Based on what I've seen from Rob Thompson over the years, and even seeing the way they have managed games against Ohtani and the Dodgers, their preference has been generally to go after him, and you do it with the right pitchers,
right? Like a Matt Strom has had a lot of success.
Absolutely, and you've got a bunch of left-handers you're going to be rolling out there in some form or fashion, be it as a starter or a reliever, and I think you try to gain that whatever that matchup advantage is. It's still going to come down to execution. I mean, if you watch that game the other night, any of those games the other night, the Reds are leaving pitches in the middle of the plate. And, the Phillies have places they feel like they can go to get Ohtani out. But it's not going to be in the middle of the plate generally. So in that regard, it comes down to execution. So is Matt Strom, for instance, executing his pitches the way he wants to? Can he get in above his hands and above the barrel and get the swing and miss that he's looking for? So I think you still stay with that idea that, if you have the right matchup, you're going to go after him. You're going to try to get him out because I think by and large they've done a pretty good job of that.
They have. Scott Franzke with us here. Red October Rallies. We get set for tomorrow night. Game 1, 6:38, and then 6:08 on Monday night for game number 2. Scott, as much as it's always about the players, managers play a big role in October. They make a lot of decisions, and moments happen, and they affect the moments. One thing when I was watching the games the last few days is some of these managers are very aggressive with using their best reliever in the biggest moments, right? Yeah. The Phillies have done that in the past, but they haven't had a closer quite like Duran to just kind of leave the ninth inning to. Do you think they would use Duran in an earlier part of the game, or is it he's the ninth inning guy and we base everything off of that? Because I'm just wondering, let's say they've used Strahm in the 6th inning, and then the 8th inning rolls around, and here comes Ohtani.
Yeah.
It's a one-run game.
I think they will be willing to use him for more than just the 9th inning. I don't think there's any question. I think they realize why they got him, and they got him for this reason.
Right.
You know, you look at the difference between, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if you go back and you look at the difference between the starters the last 2 years in the postseason and the relievers the last 2 years in the postseason, it is glaring. It is a huge difference in the effectiveness of those two units. So I do think Rob will be plenty willing to go to Duran in a spot. In, you know, I mean, is he going to be in the 6th? No, I don't think so. But I do think that the 8th inning is absolutely fair game for Duran if the situation is right. And they've got the extra off day. There's only one spot where you might have to pitch 2 days in a row. So that's helpful to that end. You can still run him out there for 2 innings, know he's going to get a day off, and you know, be able to come back out there for another inning, you know, day after next or whatever. So I think they will be pretty aggressive with him.
Well, I think they should be. I mean, Hugh, they traded for this guy. He's been really good since he got here, and if he can go more than 1 inning, that changes the calculus on the whole game.
It's all hands on deck. That's how I look at it, and I think that's how this team is going to approach it. You know, when we talk about pitching, it's going to be probably – you don't have the luxury of waiting around and let somebody work their way out of anything.
Right.
Yeah.
This is an all hands on deck situation, and like Scott said, this is the best team that you're facing all year long. So you got to pull out all the stops to get past this to get to the next one.
Yeah, because it's such a short series, it can turn on you quickly. And we talk about how the Phillies have been pretty consistent all year. That's great. That works a little bit better in a 7-game series than it does in a 5-game series. So if you get that opportunity tomorrow to lock down a game and it requires you to go to Duran in the 8th inning, so be it. Go to Duran in the 8th inning, and I think they'll do that.
Scott, how do we think the lineup might look? I mean, they have some options. It's certainly deeper. You know, I was saying earlier, last year heading into the postseason, Castellanos was their cleanup hitter. Obviously, his role has changed, and he's probably not going to start most of the games this series. It just shows how much they've changed and evolved. Alec Boehm came back. He hit well the last couple weeks. We've seen that before in October. He hasn't played his best in October. Maybe this one will be different. There's also the Harrison Bader thing. I remember when they first got him, we talked to you about it, and you talked about you could see him hitting anywhere, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it's kind of floated that way. How do you think that beyond Bryce in the lineup will look, and are we looking at Boehm in that cleanup spot?
I think Boehm probably takes the cleanup spot. And again, I know there's some debate about, you know, I heard you guys talking on my drive down here, talking about, you know, whether you really want Schwarber and Harper back to back. Well, it is something they've done all year. I tend to think they'll stay with it, and they'll go Trey, Kyle, Bryce, and Alec. And one of the reasons for Alec there, A, he's, you know, swinging the bat well, but B, he's not a guy who strikes out a ton, and I think they value that in that spot, in the cleanup spot. The fact that if you get runners on base, you know, Alec's not going to go up there. He's not a 50 home run guy, so he's not going to go up there looking to necessarily hit a home run. He's trying to use the middle of the field, put the ball in play, hit it hard somewhere. And I think that for their money, that, you know, given the other options, I think that's probably the way it goes. And then you know, I think, you know, anytime a right-hander's out there, so Saturday, you know, with Ohtani, it'll be Brandon Marsh. And then I think you play with, you know, maybe Bader 6, JT somewhere in there 7, Bryson Stott 8, and
Kepler.
Yeah. I mean, maybe Kepler hits 7th behind Bader, and then you go JT 8 and Stott 9 to keep mixing and matching the lefties. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's when you said that makes you feel how much deeper things are than maybe a year ago or 2 years ago.
Sure.
JT 8 and Stott, I feel like might be the most underrated thing the last 2 months. He's really hit since the end of July. He's become the player I think we wanted him to be, thought maybe he could be, and then I don't know what happened for that 2-year span. He just wasn't that guy. But the guy he's been the last 2 months, that's an impactful 9-hitter.
Well, I'll give him some credit for making some changes. I mean, they brought him some ideas that they thought could help him, and changing his setup pre-pitch, moving his hands down, quieting things down. And then they've got him a little more on top of the plate. You know, so many people were pitching him away, and he's popping all those balls out to left field. Well, now they're not as far away because he's right on top of the plate and he's turning on balls. And I think he could be a really big bat. I think he and Marsh have the potential to be huge for the Phillies. You know, especially in those games, Ohtani, Yamamoto, if Glasnow's in the game, guys like that, they could be huge for the Phillies.
How much stock do you put into the Phillies 4, Dodgers 2, the 6 times they played this year? Because, I mean, one of those series was a few weeks ago, so that's fresh in our mind. But I was looking back this morning at that first series. I mean, these rosters are so much different. Sasaki started one of the games. He's now maybe their closer. I think Jordan Romano closed the first win over the Dodgers this season. I mean, he's obviously nowhere to be found at this point. I mean, they are the same core of the teams, clearly, but April feels like a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. I think, you know, they were talking about it the other night when Yamamoto was pitching, and they brought up that game where he took the no-hitter in Baltimore.
Yes, in
2
early
outs
September,
in the 9th inning, and Gunnar Henderson hit a home run off and broke up the shutout. Dodgers ended up losing that game, unbelievably so. And from there to the end of the season, they went 15-5. They lost 2 out of 3 in that stretch to the Phillies. Phillies played them really well. They did so by winning the first game, clinching the division, still coming back to win another game in that series. So I do think, you know, the Phillies, another number that I'll throw at you for the Phillies is that they have more wins this year when scoring 3 runs or less than anybody in baseball. And they had by far, believe it or not, the other club was Pittsburgh. I think they finished with 25 wins, maybe 26 with the one, I think the last one.
That's a lot with not many runs.
It's a lot. Yeah. And their winning percentage was far and away the best in baseball when scoring 3 runs or less. They know how to win close, low-scoring games. Will they be in close, low-scoring games? I bet they'll have some along the way. And those are the games that can be decided by getting a runner home from third in the 3rd inning, right? And just that one extra run, and all of a sudden later in the game you're like, wow, that was a big run. And I think they have shown the ability to be able to do that. They're definitely a different. Both of them are different teams than they were. They're playing differently. They have different guys that are hot and different guys that are not. Based in terms of the April series. But I do look at the one on the road at Dodger Stadium, and the Phillies played some of their best baseball of the year, quite frankly.
They did.